Hello everyone, Dr. Kavita Sagar welcomes you for today's presentation. The topic will be cultural methods in plant disease management practices. Cultural practices are of course the oldest methods that have been used to manage the pest population of pathogens. It may be soil-borne pathogens, it may be control of weed, or even it may be nematode or pest. However, they play a major role in plant disease management, particularly in the control of nematode or pest. Even though advances in the approach of cultural practices are dependent on identifying and responding to the barriers to the development and implementation of cultural methods of the pest control, this is lacking in most of the farmers because they are not being trained and no knowledge about the crop species, cultivars, etc. has been given to them. So due to this reasons, this cultural method is being somewhat old-fashioned one. It is not attracting most of the farmers or the agricultural practitioners in order to follow these cultural control methods. So in such situation, culture controls do not offer a panacea for pest prevention and control. That is knowledge, skill-intensive techniques and trainings to the farmers regarding the design of integrated polycultures, management of use of companion crops, rotations, timing of seeding, harvesting and field operations and many more things. So all this must be provided in order to avoid soil erosion and environmental degradation. Basically, cultural practices make the environment less attractive to pests and less favorable for their survival, dispersal, growth and reproduction, and that promotes the pest natural control. Then of course there are advantages and disadvantages of these cultural methods. Cultural controls are generally the cheapest of all the control measures because they only require modifications to the normal production practices. These are dependable and are usually pathogen specific, like they do not possess some of the detrimental side effects as we can see in pesticides, namely the creation of resistance to pesticides. So this cultural control, they do not create the pathogens to be resistant towards the pesticides. So again, undesirable residues in the plant, food, feed crops and the environment, and the liking of non-target organisms. Disadvantages are this requires a long-term planning for a greatest achievement or effectiveness, and they need careful timing often based on substitution of knowledge and skills for purchased inputs, and as such are more demanding on the farmer's competence. Culture controls may be effective for only one pest but may be ineffective against a closely related species. It is difficult to assess and they do not always provide complete economic control of pests. And of course, there are some culture controls which have adverse effects on even fish and wildlife. So these are all the procedures of cultural practices of plant disease management. It includes mulching, soil solubilization, host resistance, quarantine, flooding, planting time, plowing and fallowing, crop rotation, intercropping, or even crop or overtrap. So these are different methods of cultural practices. So in this coming slides, we'll be briefly discussing about all these practices. So there are four major procedures of culture controls that include selection of site, first one. Second is planting design and management. Third is maintenance of site, and fourth is harvesting procedures. So of which the second procedure, planting design and management, includes all these processes or steps. That is, it includes crop isolation, it includes planting density and spacing, and even in this plant design and management comes mixed cropping or intercrop diversity. It also deals with the timing of seeding and planting, and crop rotation practices are practiced here. There is a destruction of volunteer plants. There is a replacement of alternate hosts. There can be a management of trap crops, management of nursery crops, and even management of surrounding environments. So under this third procedure, that is maintenance of site, here are the processes, that is cultivation, tillage, fertilization, liming, manuring, sanitation, irrigation, drainage, etc. The first process is plowing and fallowing. So this plowing is done in order to suppress the population of particularly the nematodes prior to the plantation of the next crop. So this plowing exposes the most of the soil-borne pathogens, pests and the weeds to solar heat and desiccation. So there are different types of fallowing practices. One is weedy fallow, second is dry or clean fallow, and third is weed-free wet fallow. So in weedy fallow, the fields are left undisturbed between cultivation of two crops. So in dry or clean fallow, there is a regular weeding in order to prevent the pathogen reproduction. And third type of fallowing, weed-free wet fallow, this type allows the spores of the soil-borne pathogens to germinate, and that is followed by a regular weeding in order to prevent the reproduction of the soil-borne pathogens. Second type of cultural method is mulching. So mulching is one of the simplest and most effective practices and beneficial practices, where a protective layer of the material that is spread on the top of the soil. The protective layer or the mulches can either be grass clippings, straw, bark, chips, stones, plastic, etc. So the crops are grown in beds covered with plastic or any type of mulch that result in increased plant growth. So in this picture you can see here in between the crops there is a protective layer, some mulches. So it can be a grass, it may be a straw or a bark. So mulching acts a role in protecting the soil from erosion, reducing compaction from impact of heavy rains. It conserves moisture, reduces the need for frequent waterings. So it holds the moisture, which reduces the frequent waterings to the field. So mulching plays a role in maintenance of more even soil temperature. It prevents weed growth, it keeps fruits and vegetables clean, and it also keeps feet clean, which allows access to the garden even when damp. Another type of process of cultural practice or cultural control methods is soil solarization. The meaning itself is held in this type of a practice, that is solarization. Solarization is nothing but providing heat or maintenance of the heat in the soil. So soil is solarized, soil is heated up. So it is a simple, safe and effective and non-pesticidal method of controlling soil-borne pests, where plastic sheets are spread on moist soil during periods of high ambient temperature. That is, during summer periods, the plastic sheets are spread on the moist soil. So this plastic sheets allow the sun's radiant energy to be trapped in the soil, heating up the upper levels of the soil. Solarization during the hot summer months can increase soil temperature to levels that kill many disease-causing organisms, nematodes and weed seed and also the seedlings. Soil solarization leaves no toxic residues, it improves the soil structure and also increases the availability of nitrogen and other essential plant nutrients. So here you can see the picture that black plastic sheet is covered over the cropped soil, wherein through some holes only the seedlings are left out to face to the sun. So other things, the soil is trapped, the solar energy is trapped in this soil, so which is non-toxic, which improves the soil structure and also it increases the availability of nitrogen, which is one of the important major nutrient for the growth and development of the plant, and also it increases other essential plant nutrients. Again, the planting density and spacing is another aspect which comes under cultural practices. So the planting density and spacing, the objective of this is to maximize yield per unit area without reducing crop quality, so that yield advantages override pest incidence reduction. There is more yield with a reduction of pest development and growth. So spacing may affect the rate of growth of the plant and its pest population per unit time and the behavior of the insect pest in searching for the food. So again, the close spacing may add to the effectiveness of natural enemies and result in greater control of a pest population. There are some of the pathogens which have the affinity to grow in crops which are grown in close spacing. So this close spacing, sometimes it attracts the pathogens or sometimes it does not attract the pathogens. So some insect pests are attracted by low density planting because they are silhouetted against bare ground. Particularly, example, at low density brassicas attract more aphids. If brassicas are planted at a low density, at a more distant distances, the arrival of the aphids can be controlled. And another, again, some populations of pests can increase on high density crops because of the variety of existing responses to crop spacing. A detailed knowledge of the pest biology is of extreme importance. Again, plant spacing that encourages rapid crop maturation could also provide a means of encouraging early fruiting and harvesting of crops of intermediate flowering plants. Hence, the spacing of the plant density and the spacing is very much important in cultural practices. Flooding of the crop field. This routine flooding prevents various pathogens, pests and weeds for further reproduction and germination. So here, according to the report by Noling 2003, it's been said that flooding followed by dry at interval of 2 to 3 weeks during summer has been suggested for vegetable cultivation, which resulted in reduction of root knot nematode densities. So flooding prevents the reproduction of pathogen, pests and even germination of the weeds. Another aspect under cultural practices is mixed cropping. So mixed cropping is nothing but growing more than one crop on the same piece of land. That reduces the phytophagous insect pests by increasing the natural enemies. Due to greater temporal and spatial distribution of nectar and pollen sources, there will be availability of more nectar and pollen sources. Hence, it attracts the phytophagous insect pests, and there is increased ground cover, particularly important for diurnal enemies, and there is a increased prey, offering alternative food source when the pest species are scarce or an appropriate time in the predator's life cycle. Mixed cropping also affects the pest's ability to find host plants by conferring associational resistance by the non-plant masking the odors of the host plants. Here you can see there is a mixed cropping of Chrysanthemum and Solanum species. So there will be availability of greater source of nectar and pollens. So this mixed cropping is grown, that one crop is grown on the same piece of land, which reduces the phytophagous insects by encouraging increases in the natural enemies. Intercropping. So intercropping is another aspect or another technique in cultural practices where two different plants are grown at the same piece of time, or two or more different crops of grown at the same point of time and at the same lands. So we have to be very careful in order to select the intercropping technique. So this technique is based on climatic requirement of the inter or mixed crop. Irrigation facility should be there, and the soil type also matters for the intercrop selection of the crop for going for intercropping. The canopy size, age and spacing of the coconut. In this below photographs you can see that coconut intercropping is done with banana, and coconut intercropping is done with tapioca, and again jawar is also grown as an intercrop with coconut. So the canopy size, age and spacing of the coconut are also be considered why if you want to go for intercropping with banana, coconut and other crop plant. Again, market suitability should also be taken into consideration before selecting an intercrop. So this photograph shows you the intercropping between two or more different crop plants. Crop rotation is another cultural technique used. So this crop rotation is based on growing a series of different types of crops in the same area in sequential seasons. So that is in 1 year, one particular group of plants is grown, and that is and another year another group of plants is grown, and that goes on a rotation basis. First year one group of plants, second year another group of plants. Like this rotation it goes on. This is what called crop rotation. So in this crop rotation, the plant rotation may vary from growing season to few years or even for a longer periods also. So an effective rotation is one in which a crop of one plant family is followed by one from different family. That is not a host crop for the pest to be controlled. So most of the rotations include grasses followed by legumes and also root crops. These rotations are effective against pests that have limited host plant range and dispersiveness, and or that cannot survive for more than 1 or 2 seasons without suitable host crops. Again, pests most subject to this type of control are polymobile, soil inhabiting species with a restricted host range and a life cycle of 1 year or a longer is seen. So in this photograph, you can see in the first year, there are 3 different beds in a field. In first year, in one bed, tomato is grown, second bed, beans is grown, and third bed, carrots are grown. Again, in the second year, in the bed of tomato, carrot is grown, and in the bed of beans, tomato is grown, and in the bed of carrot, beans is grown. Again, in the third year, it's a rotation. In the bed of carrots, beans is grown, in the bed of tomato, carrots is grown, and in the bed of beans, tomato is grown. So this is a diagrammatic representation to make you understand the basic crop rotation. So another photograph shows here that in first year the legumes are grown, legumes like beans and other things are grown. In the second year the vegetables with root, that may be onion, carrot, even garlic, turnip, beet can be grown. And in the third year the fruits like brinjal, cucumber, gourd, squash, even chili, watermelons can be grown. And in the fourth year leafy vegetables can be grown. So like this we can go for a crop rotation. Another aspect of cultural method is timing of seeding and planting. Timing of seeding and planting is very much important. So this avoids the invasion by migrants or the oviposition period of particular pests and the introduction of disease in the crop by insect vectors. To synchronize the pest attack with its natural enemies with weather conditions that are adverse to the pest or with the abundance of the alternative host, this timing and seeding of the plant is very much essential, and that should be taken care in the culture control methods. And this timing and seeding of planting is used in order to make it possible to destroy the crop before the pest enters diapause. Again, destruction of volunteer plants. This is another cultural methods or cultural control method practiced. The plants which are very attractive to many insects and serve as a focal point for future infestation should be destroyed. Unless they are destroyed, they can help perpetuate a pest problem by furnishing a food source to long life cycle pests of preceding crops. Again, there should be a management of alternate hosts. So most of the insects that reproduce on weeds or any other alternative hosts, and then they attack the main crops. So it is therefore essential to destroy the brambles or other weeds on uncultivated land in order to assist in the control of insects such as aphids, beetles, weed leafhopper, etc. And also care must be taken not to destroy the nursery sites for the pest's natural enemies. Trap crops is another cultural control technique. Here the trap crops, which are often small plantings which are made earlier than the main plantings. So trap crops are used to divert the insect attack away from the crop at risk by using more attractive food sources for the pests. So in the same field, there 2 different types of crops are grown. So, but instead of before them, main plant is grown, another small plantings are grown just beside the main crop. So in order to divert the insect attack, and that small plantings will be the attractive food sources for the pests. The trap crop must usually be destroyed before the insect reproduces. Once it attracts, before the insect reproduces, the trap crop should be totally destroyed. So this trap crop method involves the planting of a crop upon infested land so that the pest is stimulated to attack, but the crop is either removed before the pest can complete its life cycle, or it will provide all the requirement necessaries for the completion of the pest's life cycle. Again, alternatively, the trap crop may be preferentially attacked in the presence of the crop one needs to protect. So we need to remember here the pest must have a narrow host range, and the trap crop species selected need not be different from the main crop. So in this picture you can see here turnip is used grown as a trap crop. So this is attacked by, in order to protect the cabbages from yellow margined leaf beetles. So both the sides turnips are grown. So only these turnips are used as a trap crop on which beetles are feeding upon. So this and after once these beetles are feeded on, we should not allow the beetles to reproduce. Immediately this turnip crop should be totally destroyed. So this is the method technique in cultural methods, that is trap crops. That's it, the brief information about the cultural practices in plant disease management. Thank you. See you in the next video lessons. Bye bye.